So this movie was wrapping up and it was already fun as hell, but then the second Billie Eilish's Bad Guy started playing over the end credits, it became an instant 10 out of 10. Brightburn is directed by David Yarovesky. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It stars Jackson Dunn and Elizabeth Banks. And stop me if you've heard this one before. A young couple living on a farm in Kansas finds a young boy crash-landed in a spaceship in the woods and decide to adopt him, and then later on, throughout his life, he discovers that he has incredible powers. Oh, and he also has a strong urge to kill people. It's no secret that this movie's basically a darker take on Superman, and DC has done the same thing plenty of times, asking the question, what if Superman went dark? But what I like about this movie is that it rephrases the question into, what if Superman were a psychopath? And that scenario is an incredibly scary one. When the most powerful being on Earth, who is virtually unstoppable and can't be hurt by anything, actively wants to hurt people, that's terrifying. Like, what do you do in that situation? Before I get started, I just want to make a point to reference the fact that there's a conversation in this movie that happens early on about bees versus wasps. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, or if you plan to see it again, pay close attention to that conversation specifically, because its implications frame a very specific and very scary portrait of the rest of the film. And it serves as a really fantastic world-building device without ever needing to spoon-feed the audience anything. I was really intrigued with this movie from the first trailer, but I was also cautious since the last movie I saw that was touted as being produced by James Gunn was The Belko Experiment, and we all know how I felt about that. Thankfully, that's not the case here, and Brightburn was actually a really good time. It's got its flaws, sure, but I enjoyed it for the gory, fun superhero slasher movie that it was. For starters, the family dynamic here is incredibly well written. It makes the actual drama and horror of Brandon's sudden change and shift in personality feel a lot more impactful and emotional. And that's definitely added to by Elizabeth Banks and Jackson Dunn's incredibly emotionally charged performances as well. Jackson Dunn especially, he's kind of the perfect kid for this role. He's quiet, unassuming, he looks totally normal. So when the time comes for him to start spouting out really chilling lines, it works. And Elizabeth Banks is just, she's always on her A game, and there's no exception here. She's great in this movie. There's so much pain and desperation as the movie goes on, and she's trying desperately to come to terms with the fact that her son is hurting people and is trying to lie to herself and pretend it isn't true, but she knows deep down that it is. All in all, with the exception of a few painfully awkward lines, I would say that the writing and the acting are the strong suits of this movie. Like I said in my Ranger review though, slasher films are nothing if not for their kills, and boy, this movie goes there with the gore. There's the one eyeball moment that you've seen in all the trailers, and I honestly thought that was going to be it, and I thought that was going to be like the big gore set piece for the movie. Boy, was I wrong. There is a lot of carnage in this movie, and a lot of it is really well done. The gore effects are on point. And a few of them had me just like wincing and laughing along and having a really good time with the movie as a whole. The horror sequences are actually really well directed and pretty intense. The aforementioned eyeball sequence in the diner does some really cool things playing with the character's visibility and what she can and can't see post glass shard in the eye. Sure, it's a bit ridiculous in the sense that her vision just looks like they slapped a red gel over half of it, but I like the things they do there. I like the fact that when she sees, or kind of sees, Brandon, she has to like cover one eye to see him properly. I think that's really awesome. And it really adds to the tension when you can only see obscured glimpses of the threat in the room. A lot of the horror sequences are like that. They're really well done. I just am annoyed at how many of them just lead to jump scares. But even with that, I gotta admire the technical craft of it regardless. But with that, I do gotta get into the negatives of this film, and I do have some issues. For one, there are several scenes, including a really weird pointless dream sequence 2/3 of the way through, that just feel like padding. There's no reason for them. They're not adding anything to the film, or they're not developing the story in any way. They're just kind of there. For all the good performances, Matt Jones, who plays Brandon's uncle, is not that. I don't know what Badger from Breaking Bad was doing here, but it was really bad. There honestly wasn't a single line of dialogue from him that I actually believed. Honestly though, my biggest issue with the film, and the one thing that I would have done differently, or I wish they had done differently, is that I really wish we had more time to see Brandon prior to his change, to make the actual shift in personality feel really impactful and emotional and scary. Like I said, that's at least partially rectified by the family dynamic, and we do see glimpses of what he was like prior, but everything we find out about him and his wants and needs and relationships generally takes place after the change starts, so we never really feel the impact of that sudden change because we don't know exactly what he was like beforehand. If the movie had explored this more, or taken time to explore the concept of one can't be all powerful and all good at the same time, I think that would have been really interesting. But instead it sticks to the more straightforward route, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wish they had done it a bit differently. It left me wanting more. I feel like this came off way more negative than I meant it to. I did enjoy this movie ultimately. It's a cool, unique, superpowered slasher film with a lot of heart behind it, clearly. And if it weren't for the studio horror conventions and a bit of the rushed pacing behind Brandon's character development, I would have actually called it great. But even with those issues, I'm gonna say that Brightburn is solid. It's basically a villainized version of Superman's origin story, and I think that's awesome. Go check it out if you're a fan of comic books, or slasher films, or seeing Michael Rooker acting like Alex Jones, or Billie Eilish. I think you'll have a good time. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, click down there, like, comment, subscribe. I have a Patreon down in the description if you want to help donate to this channel, help us grow, develop, make new quality content for you all to enjoy. I would really appreciate it. Even $1 would help, but even if not, thank you so much for watching anyway, and I will see you all very soon.
I want to do good, Mom. I do.